Morning. While we're waiting for everybody to get in, I have a little review of what we talked about yesterday and the exercise we were working on. So don't forget your quote sandwich when you're introducing your sources. Actually, the same thing applies to paraphrase as we talked about. You still have to signal to that you're about to introduce a source. Yes, I mean, you don't have to have all of your sources in the draft, but by the final version that's due next week, you have a week to work on adding your sources to support what it is that you're saying and to show the argument. So let's take a look at the assignment again. Okay, you're explaining both sides of your controversy. Okay, you're going to cite 5 credible sources. Some of those should be academic sources, but not all of them have to be academic sources. I'd say you want to shoot for about 2 academic sources. But since you're doing a current controversy, a lot of them might be from newspapers, magazines, and things that talk about the more recent events that have to do with your controversy. So you don't have to have them in there for the draft, but you need them for the final version, because what they're going to do is support what you're saying. So you're going to say one of the issues with free college is that people feel it's unfair to make taxpayers foot the bill for free college. And then you quote someone who is expressing that opinion, or you paraphrase something that expresses that opinion to show what you just told us. Good morning, Camilla. Maria. Sorry I didn't respond before. Let's see. So these are the things you want to focus on for next week. Today is just a shitty first draft, right? You want 3 pages that is starting to outline. Today I'd really like to concentrate on your background information, making sure that you really explain what the issue is. So if I was doing the free college, I would have some information about what the current proposals are regarding free college by the government. I think Bernie Sanders has one. I'm not sure if Elizabeth Warren does. These were both candidates for president in the last election. They're both senators. If you're not sure who they are, you should become familiar with your issue. Okay, so by next week, you're going to use the signal phrases to introduce either a paraphrase or a quote that helps support what you're saying. Good questions so far. Any other questions? Okay, good. So let's review what we did yesterday. So we have the original source here. And so what the assigned practice was to take this quote that's in red and to integrate it smoothly into your into a statement, right? So the first thing you do is develop your signal phrase, right? So anytime you're introducing a source into your paper, develop your signal phrase first. And just like it says, the signal phrase identifies your source, mentions what makes your source credible, that they're an author, a doctor, a scientist, a researcher, integrates the evidence properly in MLA in text format, and explains the source's relevance, right? So here we have our signal phrase. According to the author of Wealth and Democracy, Kevin Phillips, during the Gilded Age, corporations and railroads took their favors, enormous ones that helped produce the world's biggest fortunes, by all but seizing key portions of federal and state government. Okay, while this was common practice, so we have the signal phrase, right? And we have the quote with the quotation marks around it. And we have the page number, which is shown in the source here. We have the period on the outside of the closing parentheses, no extra period after government. And then we explain, okay, while this was common practice, the legitimate encouragement of industry and technology aided U.S. growth and democracy. These political usurpations fundamentally threatened it, okay? When you have one person who's in control of something, it tends to slow down industry and technology and innovation. So 2, open your quotes. And then 3, cite the page number, if applicable, if you have one, okay? If you didn't have one, there wouldn't be anything here. It would just end with the period and the closing quotation marks, okay? In fact, I'm missing my quotation marks. Okay, and they don't go after the closing period, they go right after the last word. The same thing would apply if you're paraphrasing. Also, if we didn't mention Kevin Phillips, what if we took him out of our signal phrase? So if we said according to the book, Wealth and Democracy during the Gilded Age, okay? So where would we put the author's name? Because you have to have his name, because that's how we're going to look it up, right, on our works cited. Where should the author's name go if we don't mention it in our writing, in our signal phrase? Where do we put it? It has to be in here somewhere, because we have to have his name, right, in order to look it up on the works cited page. Because if we just have the page number, you don't want to have to read every entry to find the title, right? Everything's listed by the last name of the author.
Maybe we can use his names like according to Kevin Phillips on the book Wealth and Democracy. Can we?
Yeah, that's one way we did that. Now, if we don't use his name, where would we put it? If we don't use it in the signal phrase, there's another place you can put it.
All right. Maybe we can.
Remember your group presentations, your MLA presentations? Where did it say to put the author's name if you don't mention them in the signal phrase? Come on, I know.
Maybe we can increase more one phrase, and to conclude, we use Kevin Phillips. I don't know.
That's why I'm going over this. It's already on the citation page, Julian, but that's a good point. But if I'm reading this and I'm like, okay, I want to go find that source, I don't have the information I need to look it up on the works cited page here. I can put it here, right? Remember? No comma, just the author's name and the page number.
Yes, I remember.
Excellent. So that's the deal. If you don't put it here, if you don't feel it's necessary to put it in the signal phrase, like maybe they don't have as much, stake in the argument, or you're saying something like the website, you can put it here. Both of these are legitimate ways to cite sources, but we absolutely need his name either here or like we did according to Kevin Phillips in the signal phrase. So one of the two places, don't put it in both. One is enough. Okay. But then I'm like, oh, Phillips. So I can go to the works cited page, like Julian said, and look up Phillips alphabetically. Okay.
If I choose to put after the word it is wrong or no?
After which word?
It in the end of here, yes.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it's wrong because this is the author's explanation of the quote, so it's not part of the quote.
Right. And if, for example, yesterday when I was doing my paraphrasing exercise, I think in two of my paraphrasing exercise, I did like I put according to the book as is here, but in another three, I put all the source after the paraphrasing. That are their problem?
No, that's exactly right. So if we took all of this and put it in our own words and paraphrased it, everything would remain the same as the example here or the example previously when we had his name here. So it would look the same if we put this in our own words, if we took this out of quotation marks and said, basically, if we put our businesses, use their influence to take over local governments, which let them produce huge fortunes. We translate it. So whether or not you're doing the quote like it's here, or whether you would paraphrase this, everything in terms of the signal phrase and the citation would remain the same.
Right. Thank you, teacher.
Good question. Okay, so you may not have this in your draft. That's fine. In the draft, I'd really like you to focus on explaining the background of your issue and what's currently going on. So if you're doing abortion, tell me about a current abortion law that's been passed. Or I think there have been several. Or if you were doing something like voting rights, several states are passing what are considered by some more restrictive voting rules in response to the fiction that something went wrong in the last election. So it's kind of this weird thing where people believe something that's not true, and so they're passing legislation in response to the untrue allegation that we had problems with the last election, but there's no evidence to show that we had problems. In fact, more people voted than have voted in a long time. So you would need to tell me like what's going on, what are the laws that are being passed, like in Georgia, and I think there's another one they're working on in Arizona. So what's the current state of play? It's not always legislative. So for example, one of you is doing, should we pay professional athletes? What is the current status? What is the NCAA's position? What are athletes saying? What's going on right now with that issue? So like I said, you're gonna have your intro and your background information. You have to understand what the controversy is before you can say, here are the arguments, okay? So this is just a good framework to start with. You can always do more than 3 arguments, but 3 is a good round number. Okay. And then sources to support what you're saying. Oh, can't type today. Okay. So really, I'm hoping you can help each other with background information because you're likely not as familiar with the issue as the author, so you can ask questions, right? So when we do the peer review here in a second, show them what they still need to explain. Maybe they need to define terms, right? Or cover laws. What is it that you still need to know to understand what the controversy is? What are people disagreeing about? And then you can help them come up, with, if you heard something, you can suggest things if they're still struggling to come up with 3 points of disagreement that they're talking about. And then maybe they would like your opinion on whether to use block organization or point by point organization, right? So I'd like you to exchange papers and try to give 2 opinions and get 2 opinions on your own work. You can exchange through email or you can share your document with them, right? Remember, if you have a Word document, you can share it through McKendree. You just open up the document. Hold on. Back to sharing. So you go up here and hit share, and you can copy a link and then send it to them through their email or through the group chat. And then you guys can work on the giving each other help on expanding the paper, fleshing it out. So I will include some of these instructions. I'm going to break you up into groups for the peer review. Anybody have any questions before I put you in your groups? Okay, please give each other some help expanding the information that you need to explain the controversy. All right. We'll come back a few minutes before the end of the session and I'll see if anybody has any questions, and then I will open up the last session for questions also from 8:40 to 8:50. Okay, I will see you guys at the end. And you can chat with me if you have any questions in the meantime. Please join your group. I'll be available for questions. I'm going to open a new session if you need any help with anything. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this session and start a new one.